the 555 message. I've had a huge affinity with 555. It's been months coming. Nearly every single day I've received 555. And it's an angel number, but there's also an affinity with it in regards to healing. No different with yesterday afternoon with 555. I woke up a little bit extra early this morning, as you do. I was just decided to have a look at a YouTube video, as you do. And as I saw the 555 Gateway YouTube video, I opened it at 555. Now, there is deep collective healing happening at the moment. There is. And some of it's involuntary, but it's the voluntary healing that's having the greatest impact. What do I mean by voluntary? When you actively choose to go, there is a problem here. What is it? What is going on here? What can I do? And a lot of us have suffered the mediocrity of having pretty much no one. I mean, I had no one my entire life, really, until Jesus turned up fully, and now it's like my dialogue pretty much all day, every day is just a back and forth conversation between, Holy Spirit and myself. You're not going to get much of a better coach than Holy Spirit. Anyway, the 555 Gateway. Self-sabotage, trauma, criticism, downplaying, upplaying, self-regulation. I'd love to give you a really simple analogy of self-regulation, because I understand tempering. And when we become tempered, we become balanced. But with self-regulating, with old patterns of trauma, you know how you've got elevator doors that just automatically open? Well, imagine your doors are open. Every time something happens, boom, they automatically shut. And then and the more you're in the situation, they shut harder and they close off, and it sounds like, well, how do I release? And it's because it's a bit of a reversed hard wiring. And, we could talk about melancholic, melodramatic, sadistic, narcissistic, oh, I'm an empath, oh, I'm this, It is but one aspect of the full potential of what you could possibly be. Now, my affinity just recently has been based upon the movie Forrest Gump, and the parables and the depths and the meanings as you go deeper and deeper into it. And there's something about that movie, especially with Lieutenant Dan and Jenny. Now, Lieutenant Dan's destiny was to die in the field. And then you've got the billionaire shrimp mogul. Why, his journey went out and just took lots of fucking drugs. Anyway, that's alright, because I actually found myself, as I'm watching Forrest Gump this time, I'm getting more and more and more compassionately emotional towards the struggles of Jenny. And, in that movie he talks about the most beautiful voice he ever heard was Jenny's when she was 5 years of age. Anyway, needless to say, Jenny got the guts fucking raped out of her when she was a kid, and that ruined her adulthood, right? And the choices she made with mind expansion and awareness. And then you've got Lieutenant Dan as well, and then you've got Forrest's run, and the synoptic crux in that movie sits right when Forrest turns up to stand inside Jenny's house when she's got her little boy, and she stands there and looks at him and says, "Forrest, I am sorry for what I did. I've messed up. I was messed up, and I can't apologise to you enough for the way I acted over the years." And you could pull this into AA, you could pull this into, there's an answer that we're all looking for, we really are. And That answer, it's nothing new. There's nothing new under the sun. But as the 555 gateway comes in with the healing of specific traumas, there is something to realize. If there is a problem, we have to admit that there is a problem. Now, we could have what you may deem inappropriate behaviors and patterns, and it's more often than not that those inappropriate behaviors and patterns, if they exist, are functioning off old conditionings. And those conditionings, we want to have a look at, it really sits between the age of 0 and 4 years of age typically. Our blueprinting is between 0 and 7, but like 0 and 4, usually, how do I say this? Round about that time when you were supposed to be weaned off the tip. And there's a weaning issue. And relevant of what they believe to be deemed true or not. Everyone has an inner child. An inner child is our truth, believe it or not. But if we don't appropriate the understanding of what we need to know and comprehend, that aspect of us will suck on things like it's a pacifier, because the comforts that we look for are there to comfort us, because we're just, life's hard enough as it is. We are struggling, you know. And the further and further and further and further we've come along, we're like, it's not unusual to think that, like, I don't know about you, but I know that I don't see my own value. I'm getting better at it. I also know that when I watch movies, the moment a tear drops out of my eyes, I'm sitting there thinking, look at me, I'm a faggot, you know? And I'm working on that, because I've come too far to be concerned about what anyone else thinks or feels. And this is where the grand conundrum comes to. What anyone else thinks or feels. This is the message of the 555 gateway. You are not responsible for anyone else's feelings. You are not responsible for anyone else's thoughts. And as we step back into what you might call an observation position, where we simply observe the happenings of life, we recognize that the emotional attachments that are playing out in trauma dramas are from exterior validation between individuals either believing that others are responsible or believing that they are responsible. But it always comes back to this. So we've also got an issue of intimacy. And as we become more intimate with ourselves and we start to love ourselves more, we will start to look deeper into these issues for what they are. But the grand conundrum that is the real issue at the moment, which will help to create a massive collective healing, is you are not responsible for the feeling or feeling of another person. And no other human being is responsible for the way you think and feel. We are all sovereign. We are all responsible for our thoughts, feelings, and actions. Thoughts. Me by both. So, if you've got a partner or if you've got a friend, I'd say go to a counsellor, but the problem is counsellors and psychologists, I mean, they're just not like they are in the movies. You look at Good Will Hunting and you have a look at the approach that Robin Williams took, to be honest with you, I haven't found anyone yet. I sat in a room with 10 psychologists once, Right, you're not going to get a better conversation than being able to talk through your feelings in an emotionally intelligent manner with another human being as you have a common relationship with the matter that you are trying to manage, deal with, understand, comprehend, get beyond. Exterior validation. So the question I've got is, what will it take for you to understand your own value? Huge question. What will it take for you to understand your own value? What will it take for you to stop using your insecurities to act as roadblocks to what you know must happen? What? What will it take to accept responsibility for our own actions? What will it take to step free of the blame game? The blame game is when it's someone else's fault. Life owes you nothing. And you've been fucked, I get that. But we are all responsible for our own actions, our own thoughts, our own feelings. And as we take that responsibility, we start to recognise the shifts that take place, begin deep down within the centre of our muchness and suchness, our beingness, and we begin to experience what you would deem a quantum shift as we elevate our awareness and start to understand things from a much higher perspective. Because when we take responsibility for our actions, thoughts and feelings, we become objective to our situations, which then opens up the grand key, which is empathy. So if you want to think about, 4D, because we are in 4D now, we are. Don't even doubt that for a minute. Empathy is the 4D. And then as we head into 5D, we become objective on the empathy and then the needs that were being met on a personality-based level. So there are levels and levels and levels to be able to achieve, and some of us have gone beyond comprehension and tapped into what you may deem source. And we understand that we are simply God having an experience with the soul of who you are and the inner child that was made in the muchness and suchness of the blood and lineage of who you are as a human being. But essentially, a person that is born as a spirit of the child of the Almighty Creator, the sons and daughters of God. I understand that I am a Christ, which is brilliant, because what that allows me to detach from is these world experiences where I may have had an attachment to friend situations, dramas, traumas, dilemmas, etc., in recognizing that as I detach from these, I then begin to realize that it was the channel in which I used to enter this planet to have that experience. And as you come into your element of the elements, that stuff from the past will no longer affect you in the manner that it did, but you will recognize that it helped to channel you to who it is you are today. So as we go back to Forrest Gump, Forrest talks about the run that he walked, 3 years, however many days and hours. He didn't know why he was running, but from what he could figure out, you can't move forward without letting the past go. You've got to let the past go to be able to move forward free of the burdens of all the bullshit. So the past is placing value in the burdens of bullshit. So, linchpins. This is why I'm putting this together. The grand linchpin for the 555 gateway is the great burdens of bullshit that needs to be dealt with on a collective level at this present moment is you are not responsible for someone else's feelings or thinking. You are tempered to be humble and obedient to the universal laws. That is only common sense, because it allows you to function at your utmost potential. And you wouldn't be rude to another because you understand manners. But you are not responsible for the way someone thinks and feels. And when you recognise that is the case, you will start to pull the mask down that is being worn to try and stop hurting, like the subconscious doings of a loving inner child. We don't want to put others out. We don't want to hurt others. We don't want them to feel inadequate. But we are not responsible for how they feel in that manner. And if we don't open up to our gifts and become the full potential of who we are, we are doing a greater disservice to those that we are trying to hide it from than if we were to just spread the wings, let the light out, and just walk through that door, kick off the dust, and move into our destiny. And that seems frightening, but what's more frightening is suffering mediocrity. So, 555, we're not responsible for anyone else's thoughts and feelings. Our only goal is to be obedient to the universal laws. We keep utmost diligence and integrity with our manners, and we always value our morals. people of principles. You know, they talk about the pop culture and pulp music. I can tell you right now, pop culture, people of principles, that's a load of shit. But pop people, people of principles, are moralistic. They're full of righteousness. That is the goal. And as you become full of righteousness, you make righteous choices. And you are not concerned about the small things. You're not sweating them anymore because you are not responsible for little feelings. Emotional intelligence. That is the next step in this evolution of this grand collective called humanity. And the great fresh step, which isn't even fresh, I've been talking this shit for 15 years. Responsibility, accountability. The blame game is done. Take responsibility for your own actions. Become objective to your situation. Use compassionate action. Be empathetic. That's enough, really. I hope you have a really fantastic day. I hope this helps someone, because I know it helped me. Catch you.